There are stretches of the old road that have been forgotten by more than just time. They are wounds on the landscape, scars of asphalt and concrete that lead from nowhere to nowhere. This is what's left of Route 66, the Mother Road. Not the bright, nostalgic highway of postcards and pop songs, but the skeletal remains, picked clean by the relentless march of the interstate. Here, on the border of Missouri and Kansas, the silence is a physical presence. It's a heavy blanket, smothering the sounds of the modern world, leaving only the whisper of the wind through the tall grass and the mournful creak of rusting metal. The air grows cold. The last of the sun's blood-orange light bleeds out below the horizon, and the darkness that rises to meet it feels ancient, predatory. The locals have a name for this particular stretch of forgotten highway, a name earned through decades of hairpin turns, sudden drop-offs, and the twisted metal of fatal accidents. They call it Blood Alley. And they will tell you, in hushed tones, that you do not want to be stranded here after dark. At first, you might mistake it for the wind, or the rumble of a distant truck on the interstate miles away. But then you hear it again, closer this time. It's a sound that doesn't belong here. A low, guttural growl that seems to vibrate up from the broken asphalt itself. It's not the angry bark of a stray dog, or the warning of a coyote. This is a deeper sound, a chesty, resonant threat that speaks of immense weight and power. It's the sound of a predator that has no fear. You scan the ditches, the tree-line, searching for the source. Your heart begins to hammer against your ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the oppressive quiet. The logical part of your brain scrambles for an explanation, a bear, a wild boar, anything that fits within the known world. But the growl isn't followed by the snap of a twig or the rustle of leaves. It's followed only by a profound, unnatural silence. The silence of something that knows how to hunt. And then you see them. The eyes. They don't reflect the faint moonlight. They generate their own, faint, malevolent glow. At first, there are only two. But then, a few yards to the left, another pair ignites in the darkness. And then another. And another. Within seconds, the edge of the road is dotted with a dozen pairs of burning, red eyes, all fixed on you. Slowly, the shapes attached to those eyes begin to resolve themselves from the shadows. They are not dogs. Not really. The shape is canine, but the scale is wrong. They are enormous, with thick, powerful shoulders and heads too large for their lean bodies. Their fur is the color of pitch, absorbing the faint light and making them appear as holes in the fabric of the night. And they are utterly, terrifyingly silent. Their paws make no sound on the gravel. They do not pant. They only watch, their red eyes unblinking, their presence a suffocating weight. This is the first and most terrifying rule of the cursed curves of Route 66. You do not break down here. Because if you do, they will come for you. They are the demon dogs, the phantom pack that stalks the most dangerous stretches of the Mother Road. They are not ghosts of pets, but something older, more primal. Legends say they are omens, drawn to the scent of impending tragedy, the spectral guardians of places soaked in sudden, violent death. They are the harbingers of the wreck that is to come. The pack lowers itself, muscles coiling like springs. The low growl deepens, a promise of imminent violence. They are about to leap. They are about to charge. But these phantom predators aren't just a random monster on a lonely road. They are a symptom of a deeper sickness, a legend born from a very real tragedy. To understand the ghosts of Route 66, you must first understand how the road itself was killed. Before the growl in the dark, there was a roar of a different kind. The roar of engines, of commerce, of a nation waking up and stretching its limbs. Before it was a haunted backroad, it was the most famous highway in the world. To understand the ghosts that cling to its crumbling asphalt, we must first travel back to a time when this road wasn't a symbol of death, but the very definition of life, hope, and the American dream. It had many names: the Will Rogers Highway, the Main Street of America, but the one that truly captured its spirit, the one that endured, was the Mother Road. In the early 20th century, America was a nation of islands. Cities and towns were connected by rail, but travel by automobile was a treacherous, uncertain adventure. Outside of major urban centers, the concept of a paved, cross-country road simply didn't exist. The landscape was a patchwork of unmarked dirt tracks, muddy trails that could swallow a car whole, and gravel paths that were a constant threat to tires and axles. To drive from Chicago to Los Angeles was an expedition, not a trip. The nation needed a lifeline, an artery that could pump people and goods into its vast, isolated heartland. And so, on November 11, 1926, U.S. Route 66 was born. It was not a marvel of modern engineering like the interstates that would later replace it. It wasn't blasted through mountains or laid straight across the plains. Instead, it was a pragmatic and ingenious stitch, a diagonal thread that wove together hundreds of existing small-town main streets, rural roads, and farm tracks into a single, cohesive whole. For the first time, a driver could follow one ribbon of highway for 2,448 miles, from the shores of Lake Michigan in Chicago, southwest through 8 states, to the sun-drenched beaches of Santa Monica, California. It was a revolution. For the small, forgotten towns of the Dust Bowl and the Ozarks, it was an economic miracle. The road didn't bypass them. It ran directly through their center, making their main street the main street of America. Gas stations, diners, and motor courts sprang up overnight, their survival now tied directly to the steady stream of traffic flowing past their front doors. The Mother Road had begun to feed her children. But the road's first great test would not be one of celebration, but of desperation. In the 1930s, the Great Depression choked the nation, and a catastrophic drought turned the Great Plains to dust. The land itself seemed to betray the farmers who worked it. Fields became deserts, and biblical dust storms, black blizzards, buried homes and hopes alike. For hundreds of thousands of displaced families from Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Kansas, there was only one option: go west. Route 66 became their only path to survival. John Steinbeck, in his masterpiece, The Grapes of Wrath, immortalized this exodus, calling Route 66 the Mother Road, the road of flight. It was a river of battered Ford Model Ts and overloaded jalopies, piled high with mattresses, pots, pans, and the last remnants of a shattered life. They were the Okies, a name that became a slur, a people searching not for adventure, but for a chance to work, to eat, to simply exist. Every mile of the road was a struggle. Cars broke down. Money ran out. Families were forced to camp on the roadside, facing suspicion and hostility from the towns they passed through. The Mother Road, for them, was a harsh and unforgiving parent. It was a path paved with heartbreak, loss, and the ghosts of the lives they'd left behind. This was the first layer of tragedy to be absorbed by the road's asphalt, the first deep stain of human suffering that would linger for decades to come. The road was a symbol of hope, but it was also a witness to immeasurable sorrow. Then came the victory of World War II, and with it, an unprecedented wave of American prosperity. The nation was confident, the economy was booming, and the automobile was king. The desperate road of flight transformed, almost overnight, into the ultimate highway of dreams. This was the golden age of Route 66. For 2 glorious decades, the road became the quintessential American vacation. Families who had never traveled more than 50 miles from home now packed their kids into the station wagon and set out to see the country. The journey itself was the destination. Route 66 wasn't about speed. It was about experience. It was a slow, winding adventure through the very soul of the nation. You didn't just drive through a state. You tasted its food, met its people, and saw its strangest sights. A unique and vibrant culture sprang up to meet them. It was an explosion of pure, unadulterated Americana. The air was thick with the smell of sizzling burgers from countless roadside diners. The nights were set ablaze by the electric glow of a million neon signs, each one a unique, handcrafted piece of art, promising a soft bed at a motor court, or tourist cabin. To compete for the attention of passing motorists, business owners got creative and wonderfully weird. You could sleep in a concrete teepee. You could see a real-life 2-headed snake. You could stand inside the mouth of a giant blue whale. From the Gemini Giant in Illinois to the Jackrabbit Trading Post in Arizona, Route 66 became a 2,400-mile-long museum of American optimism and eccentricity. It was a world built by dreamers and entrepreneurs, small family businesses that formed a continuous chain of hospitality from Chicago to LA. This was the Mother Road in its prime. A living, breathing entity, humming with energy, connecting the nation not just with asphalt, but with a shared experience. It was more than a highway. It was a cultural phenomenon, a symbol of freedom, adventure, and the boundless optimism of post-war America. It was the physical manifestation of the belief that the best was always yet to come, just around the next bend. But the very thing that made Route 66 the soul of the nation, its slow, winding, intimate journey through the heart of America, would soon become its fatal flaw. A new kind of road was coming. A road of cold, calculated efficiency. A road that would not nurture the small towns, but sever them from the world, leaving them to wither and die in the rearview mirror. The dream was about to become a nightmare. The golden age of Route 66 was a brilliant, beautiful, and tragically brief moment in time. The very prosperity that fueled its rise was also planting the seeds of its destruction. America, having emerged as a global superpower, was looking to the future, and that future was built on 2 principles, speed and security. The slow, meandering, intimate journey of the Mother Road was about to be deemed obsolete, a relic of a simpler time, sacrificed on the altar of progress. The catalyst for this change came from the highest office in the land, born from a memory of war. As a young general during World War II, Dwight D. Eisenhower had been awestruck by Germany's Autobahn system. He saw a network of high-speed, multi-lane highways that could move troops and supplies with terrifying efficiency. He believed a similar system was not just a convenience for America, but a matter of national security, essential for evacuating cities in the event of a nuclear attack. The old roads, with their stoplights, sharp turns, and 2-lane bottlenecks, were a liability. America needed a new kind of circulatory system. On June 29, 1956, President Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act into law. It was the largest public works project in American history, a monumental undertaking that would forever change the face of the nation. It promised the future of fast, safe, and efficient travel, a 41,000-mile network of superhighways that would connect the country like never before. It was a vision of a powerful, modern America. But hidden in the fine print of that grand vision was a death sentence for thousands of small towns and for the Mother Road itself. The core principle of the new interstate system was the bypass. By design, these new highways were engineered to be rivers of concrete, flowing around and past the small towns and cities that Route 66 had deliberately nourished. The goal was to maintain high speeds, to eliminate the friction of local traffic. For the engineers in Washington, a town like Seligman, Arizona, or Baxter Springs, Kansas, was not a community to be visited, but an obstacle to be avoided. Every stoplight, every main street, was a flaw in their perfect system of efficiency. The process was slow, methodical, and utterly devastating. Section by section, the new interstates opened, running parallel to the old road, sometimes just a few hundred yards away. For the towns on Route 66, it was like watching their own executioner build the gallows in their front yard. They could see the new highway, hear the construction, and they knew what was coming. They knew that the very artery that had pumped life into their community for 3 decades was about to be severed. Imagine you're the owner of a small diner in a town like Glen Rio, Texas, right on the state line. For 30 years, your life has been governed by the rhythm of the road. A steady, endless stream of cars, trucks, and families has flowed past your front door, stopping for gas, a hot meal, a place to sleep. Your business, your home, your children's future, everything is tied to that river of traffic. Then, one Tuesday morning in 1973, a new stretch of Interstate 40 opens, just half a mile north of town. The change isn't gradual. It's instantaneous. The river of traffic is diverted, rerouted onto the new, faster path. The constant, familiar roar of engines is replaced by an unnerving, profound silence. You stand at your counter, watching the empty road, waiting for the lunch rush that will never come. The first day, you tell yourself it's a fluke. By the end of the week, you're staring at a handful of receipts, not enough to even cover the cost of electricity. Within a month, you're forced to lay off the waitress who has worked for you for 15 years. Within 6 months, you lock the front door for the last time, leaving the coffee cups still sitting on the tables. This exact story was repeated in hundreds of towns across all 8 states. It was a slow-motion economic catastrophe. The diner closes. Then the gas station across the street, unable to compete with the new corporate chains at the interstate exit, shuts down. The Wigwam Motel, once a quirky, beloved landmark, becomes a crumbling, vandalized relic. The families who ran these businesses, who had invested their entire lives in the promise of the Mother Road, are forced to pack up and leave, seeking work elsewhere. The town's population dwindles. The school closes. The post office shuts its doors. The town hasn't been destroyed by a fire or a flood. It has been strangled, slowly and quietly. It has become a ghost town. This was the great severing. The Mother Road, which had once fed and nurtured her children, was now leaving their skeletal remains to bleach in the sun. The vibrant, optimistic communities of the Golden Age became hollow shells, monuments to a forgotten way of life. The American dream, which had once sped down this highway, had taken the exit ramp and left nothing but dust and decay in its wake. This is the crucial, tragic truth that underpins every ghost story we are about to investigate. The haunting of Route 66 is not just about spirits and specters. It is about the profound, lingering trauma of abandonment. The emptiness left behind by the interstate was not just physical, it was psychological. The silence became a canvas, and onto that canvas, people began to paint their fears, their sorrows, and their memories. The real-world tragedy created a perfect, fertile ground for the supernatural to take root. The ghosts of Route 66 were not just appearing, they were being born from the very real death of the road itself. When a place dies, it doesn't always rest in peace. The trauma of the Great Severing left hundreds of miles of Route 66 scarred and abandoned. The silence that fell over these forgotten towns and treacherous stretches of road was a vacuum, and human nature abhors a vacuum. Into this void crept the stories, the whispers, the legends. The real-world tragedies of economic collapse and sudden death became the seeds from which a new, darker folklore would grow. The ghosts of the Mother Road were waking up. Our investigation begins where our journey started, back on the crumbling asphalt of Blood Alley, in Missouri, in the territory of the Phantom Pack. The legend of the demon dogs, with their glowing red eyes and predatory silence, seems like a pure fabrication of horror. But the truth is, this specific stretch of Route 66 has always been a place of immense, real-world terror. Before the interstate, this was a main thoroughfare, a narrow, two-lane road with no shoulders, unforgiving hairpin turns, and steep, unmarked drop-offs. It was a notoriously dangerous piece of highway, and the locals knew it. The sheer number of fatal accidents here was staggering. Head-on collisions on blind curves, cars losing control and plunging into the ravines below. It was a place soaked in the tragedy of sudden, violent death. When the interstate bypassed this section, it was left to rot. The warning signs fell down. The guardrails rusted away. The road became even more treacherous, a trap for unsuspecting travelers or thrill-seeking locals. The legend of the demon dogs didn't just appear out of thin air. It attached itself to a place that was already defined by death. The stories say the dogs don't cause the accidents. They are drawn to them. They are a supernatural warning system, a manifestation of the road's bloody history. They are the psychic residue of 100 fatal wrecks, phantom guardians of a place where the veil between the living and the dead is thin. The growl in the dark is not just a threat, it is an echo of the final, terrified screams of those the road has already claimed. As we travel further west, the manifestations of the road's grief begin to change. Not all of its ghosts are monstrous. Some are just lost. Near the point where Kansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma meet, there is a skeletal remnant of the old road, a place that has been a nexus for paranormal activity for nearly a century, the Tri-State Spook Bridge. Built in the 1920s, this narrow, creaking, single-lane bridge was once a vital link on Route 66. Today, it sits abandoned, a bridge to nowhere, slowly being consumed by the forest. For decades, this has been a pilgrimage site for ghost hunters and local teenagers, all drawn by the promise of witnessing its resident phantom, a mysterious, floating orb of light. The stories are remarkably consistent, a familiar echo of the legend we investigated in the Ozarks. People who visit the bridge at night report seeing a single, greenish-white orb of light that appears at one end of the bridge, floats silently across its length, and then vanishes into the trees on the other side. It's often called the Joplin Spook Light, and like its more famous cousin, it has a collection of tragic origin stories attached to it. One legend tells of a pair of young lovers whose car plunged off the bridge into the creek below, drowning them both. The light, they say, is their joined spirit, forever trying to complete their final journey across the bridge. Another, more sinister tale, speaks of a woman who was murdered here, her body thrown from the bridge by her husband. The light is her restless soul, forever searching for justice. But perhaps the most poignant story is that of a Native American chief whose burial ground was disturbed during the bridge's construction. His light is a spectral guardian, a silent, eternal protest against the desecration of his sacred land. What we see here is a pattern. A place of transition, a bridge, becomes a focal point for the supernatural. The real-world dangers of the narrow, outdated structure, combined with the isolation that came after the bypass, created a perfect storm for a haunting. The spook light of this bridge is another manifestation of the road's sorrow. It is the ghost of countless journeys cut short, a symbol of the connections that were broken when the mother road was severed from the world. It is a lonely light on a lonely bridge, a quiet testament to all that was lost. Our final destination takes us deep into the harsh, beautiful landscape of the Mojave Desert, to a town that is a living, breathing ghost. This is Oatman, Arizona, a former gold mining camp that became a vital and bustling stop on Route 66. When the interstate bypassed Oatman in the 1950s, it wasn't just a bypass, it was a near-total isolation. The new highway cut a path through the mountains, leaving Oatman to wither in the desert heat. The town almost died completely. But some of its residents, it seems, never left at all. The epicenter of the town's haunting is the Oatman Hotel, a two-story adobe building built in 1902. It's a place steeped in history, a classic Old West hotel that once hosted movie stars like Clark Gable and Carole Lombard. But its most famous resident is a ghost the locals affectionately call Odie. The legend says that Odie is the spirit of William Ray Flower, an Irish miner who lived and, in 1930, died in one of the upstairs rooms. The stories of his haunting are not of terror, but of melancholy and mischief. Staff and guests report hearing the faint, mournful sound of bagpipes playing in the empty hallways at night. Doors open and close on their own. The television in his old room will turn on and off, and objects will be moved from one place to another. Unlike the terrifying demon dogs or the sorrowful spook light, Odie feels different. He is a ghost of permanence, a spirit tied not to a moment of violent death, but to the very soul of the town itself. He is the lingering echo of the town's prosperous past, a time when the gold mines were active and the road outside was teeming with life. His gentle, almost playful haunting is a quiet refusal to let the town's history be forgotten. He is the ghost of economic death, the spirit of a man, and a town, that was left behind by the march of progress. From the predatory omens of Blood Alley, to the lonely light of the Spook Bridge, to the melancholic miner of the Oatman Hotel, the ghosts of Route 66 are as varied as the road itself. But they all share a common origin. They are not random specters. They are the children of abandonment, born from the silence and decay left in the wake of the interstate. They are the stories the road tells to remind us that it is still here, a testament to the fact that when you kill a dream, you don't always get silence. Sometimes you get a haunting. A road is more than just a means of getting from one place to another. It's a repository of memories, a library of human experience written in asphalt and dust. For 3 decades, Route 66 was the most important road in America, a vibrant artery that carried the lifeblood of a nation. It was the path of desperate dreamers fleeing the Dust Bowl, the playground of optimistic families on the great American vacation, and the life support for hundreds of small towns that dotted the landscape like beads on a string. The Mother Road was a living thing, humming with the energy of a nation in motion. And then, it was silenced. The Great Severing, the birth of the interstate system, was a cold and calculated act of progress. It was logical, efficient, and in its own way, necessary for a growing superpower. But it was also a profound act of cultural violence. It didn't just bypass the towns, it erased a way of life. It traded intimacy for speed, community for convenience, It left behind a 2,400-mile-long ghost, a scar that stretches from the heart of the Midwest to the Pacific shore. So what are we to make of the stories that have grown up in the silence? The demon dogs of Blood Alley, the spectral light of the Tri-State Bridge, the mischievous miner in his desert hotel. Are these genuine paranormal phenomena? Are they simply the campfire stories of a forgotten America? The truth, it seems, is that they are something far more profound. They are the road's response to being forgotten. They are the echoes of the life that was so abruptly taken away. The demon dogs are not just random monsters. They are the personification of the real, physical danger of the old road, the lingering trauma of 1,000 fatal wrecks that now serves as a spectral warning. The spook light is not just a mysterious orb. It is the ghost of 1,000,000 journeys, a lonely beacon on a bridge that no longer connects to anywhere, a symbol of the broken promises and severed connections left behind by the bypass. Odie the ghost is not just a restless spirit. He is the embodiment of the economic death of a town, the lingering soul of a community whose prosperity was sacrificed for the sake of progress. The real haunting of Route 66, then, is not the presence of ghosts, but the absence of life. The legends are the emotional architecture built inside the hollowed-out shell of the American dream. They are the stories we tell to make sense of the decay, to give a name and a face to the profound sense of loss that permeates these abandoned places. The spirits of the Mother Road are the collective grief of the diner owner who had to lock his doors, the motel operator who watched the traffic disappear, the family that had to leave their home in search of a future that no longer ran through their town. These legends are an act of rebellion. In a world that has moved on, that speeds past on the interstate without a second glance, the ghost stories are the road's way of screaming for attention. They force us to slow down, to look into the shadows, to remember what was lost. They are a testament to the fact that you cannot simply erase a piece of the nation's soul without it leaving a mark. The road refuses to die quietly. It refuses to be forgotten. So if you ever find yourself on one of these forgotten stretches of the Mother Road as dusk begins to fall, listen closely. Listen past the wind, past the hum of your own engine. You might just hear the echoes on the asphalt. The echoes of the life that was, the tragedies that were, and the legends that remain. They are the last, defiant heartbeat of a road that was, and a dream that will never be again. The true ghost of Route 66 is the road itself. We have journeyed down the haunted highways of America, investigating the ghosts born from tragedy and the phantoms created by the death of a dream. We've searched for spirits in the vast, lonely landscapes of the open road, in the crumbling ghost towns, and on the dark, forgotten curves where legends are born. The spirits we've encountered have been tied to the land, their stories etched into the very asphalt and soil of the places they haunt. But some spirits are not bound to a place. They do not need a lonely road or a decaying hotel to linger in our world. They are parasites. They find a vessel, an object of seeming innocence, and they attach themselves to it, turning a child's plaything into a conduit for malice. These spirits can travel. They can be bought, sold, and gifted. They can end up in your home. In our next investigation, we leave the haunted highways behind and travel to the sun-drenched, idyllic shores of Key West, Florida, to uncover the dark, violent, and incredibly well-documented history of what is widely considered to be the most haunted doll in the world. This is not a story of vague whispers or campfire tales. This is a story with a century of credible witnesses, from the family it tormented for decades to the museum staff who are its caretakers today. It's a story of objects being thrown across rooms by an unseen force, of disembodied giggling echoing in empty hallways, and of chilling, first-hand accounts of the doll changing its expression and moving on its own. This is a haunting so active, so malevolent, that there are strict rules for how to behave in its presence. A doll that curses those who disrespect it, bringing misfortune, illness, and even accidents to those who mock it. A doll you must formally ask permission to photograph, lest you become its next victim. A doll that has a name it gave itself. This isn't just a ghost story. This is the legend of Robert the Doll.